Thank you all for joining us for Chris Budwine, a new archaeological find in China. We are coming to you from the Renaissance Society of Sacramento. This is a co-sponsorship with the Friendship Force as well. And we have a lot of people from Eventbrite. So we want to thank you again. I especially want to thank Chris. She is a wonderful speaker. She has been back to China 36 times, I think she told me. And she does a wonderful job on not only showing the story, not only showing the pictures and whatever, but the story of these artifacts. I'm going to let Chris introduce herself. I am going to be doing this as a shared screen using a PDF. She will then tell me when she wants me to forward them. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat at about slide 20. She'll take a break, let you ask your questions, and then she'll go on and we'll be able to ask more questions at the end.
Mary Ellen, let's just ask everybody to mute, please. That would be helpful.
Yes, and if everyone can mute and turn off your speakers so that we do not interfere, that would be wonderful. Okay, Chris, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. First of all, I'm not an archaeologist and I'm not a historian. I'm just interested in Chinese culture because that is my background. And today I'd like to share a little bit about China with you, not just about archaeological finds. The title of my talk is Reason, Archaeological Finds in China. Next one, please. I am just briefly tell you a little bit background without going into any detail. The first modern scientific archaeological discovery was not made by Chinese. It was made by a Swedish geologist. His name is Johan Andersson in 1921. He was an excellent amateur archaeologist, and he also knew a lot about Chinese civilization, which he understood started along the Yellow River. Next slide, please. The reason why he went to China is not because he was going there for his own interest. He was invited to assist in a mining operation in northern China near the Yellow River. He examined all the earth that was dug up because of his amateur interest in archaeology. He found some teeth, fossils, and he decided it wasn't an animal. He thought it might be an early man. So he took it back to Europe. And then with the help of other archaeologists, study ultimately led to the discovery of Peking Man, which at that time was before Leakey discovered any early human in Africa. Peking Man exists around 5,000 BCE. Next one, please. Peking Man was a major discovery. Unfortunately, China soon became a war-torn country, and they had absolutely no resources to further this study. And until the Yangtze River, or commonly known as the Three Gorges Dam Project, was approved in 1992. Since then, it was a boom. Next one, please. Okay. The Three Gorges Dam was not a first time Chinese want to control floods in the big river. Actually, both Yellow River and the Yangtze flood fairly often. The reason why a lot of talk to build a dam along the Yangtze was because the Yangtze River was a major agricultural land, not so much in Yellow River. So if you control the flooding, you can avoid famine, which was traditionally a big problem in China. Next one, please. I may not read everything on the screen, if that's okay with you, because I believe you can read better than I can. I would like to talk a little bit about the impact of the Three Gorges Dam on Chinese archaeology. This project was immense. They have to relocate 1.2 million residents along the river to higher grounds. They have to build new cities, new apartment blocks to house them. But more importantly, if they flood the valley, they destroy a lot of archaeologically significant sites. And in Chinese history, there were lots and lots of battles, poems, history took place along the Yangtze. I'm going to digress a little bit. 10 of us from the Bay Area all have similar backgrounds as I am, came over to the US for university. When we found out that how gigantic this project and how many areas would be flooded, we decided to go back to China so we organized a special tour along the Yangtze River. And we helped each other to recall some poems. We went to visit the Yellow Crane Pagoda, which has a beautiful essay about it. We saw the hanging coffins, etc. So we went in the mid-1990s. Next one, please. Okay, illegal excavation is a problem throughout history, not just in recent years. The Chinese government want to prevent the loss of artifacts. They set out very strict rules on how to report new finds and how and what punishment will mete out if they rob these sites. The reason why the robbing of the archaeological sites so prevalent was because a lot of them can make quick bucks, make a lot of money very quickly if they are not caught. Next one, please. As economy improved, more and more places were cleared. Farmlands, new roads, new cities, and therefore a lot of sites were discovered during these work. And this started a boom to the archaeological excavation discovery. Unfortunately, that means more illegal excavation. Next one, please. Oh, by the way, hang on 1 minute. All those dots on the map are the archaeological sites discovered in this new century, 21st century. Thank you. Next one, please. This is a magazine I subscribe to. It's called News China. This is a February 2021 issue of New China. It has a very good article about the recent excavation as well as the problem of illegal excavation. And I will talk a little bit more about the content of this magazine a little bit later, because if you are interested in, I'll tell you what content is in it besides talking about Chinese stuff. Thank you. Next, please.
Whoops, my apologies.
Okay. In 2005, a tomb belonging to the 6th century Shu crown prince was found in northern China. That dark area is the boundary of the Sui Dynasty. So you can see it's mainly towards the southeast of present China, all the way along the Yellow River at the northern bound and about halfway upriver from the Yangtze River. This was a very important discovery because Shu was a very short dynasty. Very little is known, even in written record, much less archaeological finds. And so the reason why I picked this particular topic is this is a very important contribution to the understanding of that very, very short dynasty. Next one, please. You can see how short it is. It's only lasted 39 years. On the left there, you can see a painting of the emperor, the first emperor of the Shu dynasty. And the reason why he was so important in the history, even though it was such a short dynasty, was before him, China was fractured. The nomads enter into the mainland China, and they have their own rules. And the southern minorities also rose up and carve out area of their own. The Han people used to be the ruler of the whole kingdom. They lost power until he came along. He defeated the North and the South fractions and returned the power to the Han people. I say a few words about him. He was a very able person, of course, but also very ambitious. Interestingly enough, he was also very frugal. He had big ideas of what to do, but he didn't spend it on himself like so many other emperors. He lived very, very simply. And he had an idea that economic power should be for all people, which is a new idea. And because China was an agricultural-based country, and water is very important for the farmers. And he was the first one built a canal. You can see on the map that red line connecting the northern river with the southern river. Two purposes. One, supply water to the farmer. Secondly, encourage commerce so people can make money and satisfy his idea of economic equality. Next one, please. In the spring of 2005, a very large, deep hole was exposed in a field south of the Yellow River. And when the farmer dug the hole, he found out that this hole was man-made because it was pretty round and also very, very deep. He couldn't see down. And because the Three Gorges, China wants to protect all the archaeological sites, so it was very well known to everybody. If you discover anything that you think is an archaeological site, you need to report it. And since this guy thinks that it possibly is an entrance to an underground chamber, he reported to this authority. Chinese government respond to this kind of discovery very quickly. They immediately send soldiers there to set up fence, put posts, to tell people to keep away, and send teams of archaeologists to go see if it is a real site. So a team of archaeologists actually arrived 3 months after the discovery of that hole. That was quick. And they also quickly start the excavation. The photo here is the area of the tomb, how big it is. This is on above ground. You see a lot of holes at the far end there. Those are like skylight, if you can imagine that, to the tomb. And you can see it's like a cross because it has side chambers. Next one, please. This area was a dry farming area. So that's the reason why not many land was clear for farming. And it was a good thing. Dry means they preserve things very well. And because it was dry, they didn't clear the land. So it was preserved. And when the team started digging, and by the way, now they use machinery only for the top soil. They clear the top part just to see how far they have to go down, because now they have imaging machines to tell what is underground. So after the topsoil is removed, they usually start using hand excavation. At the end, this tomb was 10 meters deep with a round brick main chamber. There was so much loose dirt in the inside. Some area was up to 4 meters deep of accumulated dirt along the corridor. Because of the hole and the dirt accumulated there, it was clear that this has been opened before by robbers. And another indication that robbers had come was no valuables were discovered. No gold, no silver, no jade, no bronze. They were all removed because those were the items that robbers can sell very easily. And also they are solid. They don't have to be very careful. Like fabric, they would leave it alone because it's too difficult to bring it up and sell it. So they only rob things that are easy to carry and also has high value. And So the archaeologists also think that it was robbed many times, not just one time. And I don't know why they say that. I never found out how they found out it was many times. I'm just reporting what I read. Next slide, please. Very, very lucky. There were murals along the corridor. Beneath layers of loose dirt, there were whitewashed surfaces on both sides of the entrance with visible murals. You can see the features of these guys very well. And this is valuable information for archaeologists. They want to see what kind of costume, that means headdress, clothing, and what kind of weapons, what kind of decorations that will give them some clues. So this is just one of the murals. They have many, many. The next one, please. Next slide. Now this mural is not so easy to see because there were very thick mineral deposit got onto it. And the Chinese archaeologists today learn from their past experience. You all know about the Terracotta Army, and some of you have visited. When they first opened the site, they discovered these army figures. They were colorful. They have red, green, purple, yellow on it. But after a few hours, they started to flick off. And pretty soon, they became what you saw, which is gray color. They learned from this experience. So today, they don't really try to clean it very much, but they do put a coat of chemical to stop oxidation. And this one, they will come back later when technology improves, that they can clean it better and can show the things better, but that's how they left it. This mural showed court attendants in a military parade. How do you know they are in a military parade? First of all, their dresses, they are not for battles, they are for court appearance. And they have these ceremonial swords and some of them carry arrows and quivers. So from the dresses, they know they're not marching towards a battle. They are in a court attendance. And it is a peacetime ceremony. The next one, please. Okay, this is part of a mural. I hope you can see a sword. I hope you can see a bow, and I hope you can see a quiver with arrows in it. And each era, the bows and the arrows are slightly different. I cannot tell one from the other, but the archaeologists can tell. And the decoration on the swords also is very much influenced by the fashion of that time. And again, I don't know how to tell them, but I was told that's how the archaeologists know what period this belongs to. From the image of the people and the weapons and the size of the site, the whole site is 63 meters long and 3 meter wide. The corridors are 3 meter wide. 3 meters is about 10 feet. So 63 is about 200 feet long. So this is a major tomb. It's not for mom and dad kind of things. And also it was not completely built with brick, but the chamber, the main chamber was built with brick, not earthen like most of them. All these indicate that the person buried here was a high-ranking personage from an imperial court. The issue is, who is it? Why is he buried here? Because this is nowhere near a capital. Next slide, please. There are more murals. You can see the colors. The reason why I put these two up is some of them were not damaged by mineral deposit. They are very, very well preserved. You can see these guys wear boots, and also they have the headgear like a kerchief tying their hair. And the archaeologists can tell from that, just like the Terracotta Army, from the hair, how they wear the hair and what kind of knot, they can tell what kind of rank these people are. And also the color of the clothing also indicate their rank. And I will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Next slide, please. Okay. This slide is to show how they clean it. I mentioned a little bit earlier, the archaeologists show up within 3 months after reporting of the discovery. And they hire locals to help them do the excavation with a little bit of training. The upper right picture are the locals. They are the ones with tiny little knife scraping off the dirt. They were trained how to do it. And when they get to a certain depth, they don't use knife anymore. They use fairly like bristle brush, and then very soft brush. That's how they do it. And also that picture tells you how deep that corridor is. And these people, you can see some of them are standing up, and the corridor is more than twice that person's height. The bottom picture is the archaeologist. This is the mural, and he is applying a chemical to dissolve some of the loose dirt and also put a preservative in it, mainly to set the color and also stop the oxidation, which will cause the color to fade. So the reason why they can do it so quickly is they put massive manpower in these projects. I'm always surprised. They have the money. They just hire many, many people to help them. So, and I will, if you have questions, just put it in the chat and I can answer, and I will go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the brick chamber. As you can see at the top there, you see lights in there. That's where the hole was, where the farmer discovered the hole. Remember, he discovered a round hole. That's the at the top of the dome chamber. And you can see that large blocks of, some of them were stone, some of them were brick, to make this 8-side dome. Technology-wise, their building technique is pretty advanced. And also you can see the chamber has panels of murals all around it. And they all depict some sort of court personage. Another evidence that this tomb did not belong to a general or a wealthy merchant or anybody like that. It belonged to somebody in the court and probably in pretty high position. And this stone was damaged, but fortunately it was very, very well built. Just think of all the dirt piled on top of it. If it wasn't well built, it would have collapsed over the years, but it didn't. It held and preserved, but it did let a lot of the dirt. Remember, this is a dry area. So the dirt, loose dirt comes in, and also it's a windy area. So the wind blew and accumulate on the corridors, etc. So this picture, I hope, explain where the dirt came from and how it gives people idea that this is an important person in the imperial court. Next slide, please. I think after this one, we should have the break. Okay, on the right side is a mural. The mural, you can see a few people in there, but there was a rack. You can see the rack with some sticks on it. Those are keys. Well, since you cannot see what it is, so I found a modern reproduction rack with the key on it and put it on the right upper side to let you see what is a key. Key is a weapon. It's a weapon that was developed over the years that combines the pointed tip of a spear and a crescent-shaped blade that is on the side. I hope you can see it. If you count from the reproduction picture, count from the left, the third one is a very clear picture what it looked like. It is a spear and then a crescent-shaped blade. So the warrior, oh, by the way, the handle is about 6 feet long. So you gain advantage of being not to have to be too close to kill somebody. I don't know how heavy it is. I have never handled one of these. The guy will hold it and stab and then pull. The crescent blade will cut. And also, if you can put the crescent blade along somebody's neck, you can kill that person. So it's a many-use weapon. And this weapon is extremely important in the battle because bow and arrow is good for long distance and massive arrow to stop your enemy from rushing to you. But when the enemies are close, you need some pretty mean looking weapons to gain advantage. More importantly, in ancient time, people display keys in a rack, like in the mirror, in the front door, at the entrance. But the number you can display is strictly controlled by the court. If you are a general, you can display 4. But if you are only a captain, you can only display 2. If you are a foot soldier, you cannot do that at all. In fact, not only weapon display indicate who you are, how important you are. In the imperial time, up to the 19th century in China, lots and lots of rules to control your daily life. I'm just going to give you a few examples. Only the emperor can wear a golden yellow robe. Golden color is reserved for him. Western society is not like that, but in China, yes. And I don't care how much money you have, how important a merchant you are. You can own horses. You can use the horses to plow your land, but you cannot ride a horse in the avenue that go to the palace. You cannot. You can ride in the countryside. And let's say I am a rich merchant and I can afford many, many luxurious things. But because I have no rank, I cannot wear silk. Silk is reserved for officials and high-ranking people. I can wear fine cotton, I can wear wool, I can wear anything. And some people wear it underneath to escape the scrutiny, but outwardly you cannot. So life is pretty much constricted by a lot of rules to tell you your station in life, where you are. You cannot just arbitrarily do things. Another example, you all know, you have seen many paintings of dragons. Let's say I am an official in the court. I want to decorate my house with the painting of a dragon. Yes, I can paint it on my wall, but the number of claws of that dragon is strictly restricted. Only the emperor can have a dragon with 5 claws. The prime minister can have 4, and so on down the line. I think I have given you enough example to show that why the archaeologists pay so much attention to this particular mural, because it also indicates the rank of the owner. I am a little bit ahead of time, so shall we take the break and answer a few questions?
Absolutely. And I haven't seen the chat to see if there's any. I have a couple of questions. Is there any in the chat, Kathy?
There isn't any in chat, but I have one also.
Okay. So let me ask you, one of the first things that you said, Chris, was that it was a very short dynasty. So what brought this dynasty into power and what precipitated it ending?
Okay. I was going to touch on the ending, but the Han people were very unhappy that they lost the control of the kingdom. So there were a number of ambitious young men, Han young men, started a rebellion, started to gather armies and take the power back from the nomad from the north and the minority from the south. He was just the one that was successful. And that's why he became an emperor. Now, why his dynasty was so short? Qin, the one that the Terracotta Army that you are all very familiar with, is the shortest dynasty in the history of China. That one only officially lasts 16 years. That was really short, but that was also a very important dynasty. And so is this one. This one is only 39 years. But the idea he started, like the equality of economic equality, was so new and get people so excited. So his influence was very important. Now you ask, why so short? I mentioned he was frugal, but he was very ambitious. And what did he do? Because he took the land back from the nomads from the north. So one of the things is he wanted to strengthen the Great Wall, and that is a big project. He also wanted to move the capital to a new place, which is present-day Xi'an, which is outside. Xi'an is the Terracotta Army place. So some of you have some idea where it is. So he wanted to build the canal. He wanted to build, strengthen the Great Wall. He wanted a new palace, new capital. And also, during his reign, Korea invaded China. You remember that map? He is not very close to present-day Korea. Korean came over Manchuria and started to come down. And it got to the point that it was pretty close to his boundary. So he, excuse me, amassed an army, a big army. He said, you guys are not going to take over my hard-earned kingdom. But he lost. So now explain the reason for his short-lived dynasty. He raised taxes. The tax was so high that the common people find it difficult to pay. Constrict labor to build the wall or repair the wall and build the new capital and build the canal, and lost the wall, lost a lot of life. People started to get unhappy and uprising. And that's why the dynasty ended. A little long-winded, but that's a short version of it.
And I'm going to, I don't know if you want to devote to this.
I'm
going to throw this to Kathy also. Kathy, did you want to ask a question or take one from the chat? It's up to you.
I'll just a real quick question, Chris. On the keys, do you think that, I mean, were those primarily weapons used from horses or ground combat? Do you know?
Both.
Okay.
Mostly foot soldier.
Okay. And people who were not allowed to ride horses, like down the avenue and stuff, were they allowed to ride horses in battle?
Oh, if you are conscripted to go into the army, you can bring your own horse.
Okay, good. We do have a couple of questions in chat. One is I'm trying to clarify, and then One is from Dale. How many archaeological sites were lost due to the flooding of the Three Gorges Dam?
Oh boy. Um, well, let me be a little long-winded to tell you. I told you in mid-1990s, I went back to Yangtze to see all the historical sites. 10 years later, I went back. That was after the water has covered a lot of the land along the banks. I was shocked to see how many museums, new museums along the river. It is because as they clear the land, move the people, move the archaeological buildings, etc., they also discover a lot of important sites. They excavate those because they cannot ignore it, and therefore built a lot of new museums. I wish I had time to visit a few more, but the bottom line is, I don't know how many.
Okay.
But lots. Every time I go back to China, new museums. Some of them are very good. The first few years, let's say in the 1990s, when I go to a museum, the Chinese explanation was pretty good, but if they tried to translate into English, it was pretty, I hate to say it, awful. But now, when you go to a museum, the Chinese as well as the English explanations, superb, really good. Quality is very high.
Thank you. Another question, Chris, is you shared a lot of wonderful insight into the rules for the different classes of people from the emperor, on down. Of course, we know that emperor wouldn't have rules now, but are there still class rules in China, that only a certain level or hierarchy can do, have certain things displayed, or any of the kinds of things that you were sharing earlier?
Well, China has always have classes. Some people may argue with me, but it is. Confucius was the one that actually put it down in words. Is scholar at the top, farmers next level, people that make things, what I call machinist type is the third. Merchant is the lowest level of people. That's why doesn't matter how rich you are, if you're a merchant, you cannot do a lot of things. I use the example of clothing and riding a horse. It's because merchants are supposed to be the lowest level in society.
Okay, thank you. One last question.
Not counting the court. The court people are separate. I mean, the common people. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chris. One last question. Can you speak about the importance of the Grand Canal?
Oh, the Grand Canal. Okay. The Grand Canal is still existing today. It's not as important, but it was important for about 1,000 years. It was a major waterway for grains to go from south to north, and things from the north come to south. And also the Grand Canal has a lot of tiny little canals that go into the villages. So make the farming become more, well, enlarge the number of acreage. Today, the Grand Canal, I don't even know if they dredge it. I have not been through the entire canal. I was on it for a very short part of it. It's not as impressive as the other canals, like the Panama Canal. Oh, that one was impressive, but the Grand Canal is not. Grand Canal is a lot less, but don't forget, this was constructed in the early part of the 6th century. So it was engineering feat. It was a big engineering endeavor and very important.
Okay, that is it for our questions in chat. I just entered the Zoom event for the one this evening.
I saw one hand. Albert Wolfgang has a hand up.
Okay.
Maybe he can ask this question before we go back.
Albert, can you put it in chat, please?
Oh, okay.
And Albert, if it's too long, if it's a question that can hold until after she talks, and we'll hold that question for later. I have to say I have 4 or 5 myself that I've written down. So.
Okay. Let's go back to the
presentation.
slide.
And I'm going to mute myself because I lose my ability to mute after I share screen, and then I'm going to share screen.
Okay, and if I can just ask everybody to turn their video off. Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. Let's see. I lost my own place. Hang on a minute. Well, I lost. Okay. I will.
We're at whose tomb was
Okay,
this?
I found you. Okay. My screen all of a sudden got crazy. Sorry. The question now is, whose tomb was this? Definitely not a merchant. Definitely somebody from the imperial court. And which dynasty? Who is it? They look at different clues. First of all, the brick chamber. It held up for 15 centuries. It was very well built. And brick chamber was not commonly used before the Tang Dynasty. Tang Dynasty started in 618 and in 907. A long 290-year dynasty. You all have some knowledge about Tang Dynasty, or at least you have seen the tricolor Tang Horse. If you don't know what it is, let me remind you what it is. This thing is heavy, so I have to use both hands to hold it up. This thing, you probably all have seen this horse. It is a Tang horse, tricolor because it's made out of 3 major colors: green, sand color, and ochre. And that's the color of the glaze. Now, Tang was long and prosperous dynasty. I'm going to say a few things about it. Tang not only was long, 290 years, also prosperous, and also is a very important period of Renaissance for China. Art, music, etc. flourish, and people educated. And so there were lots and lots of records, lots and lots of essays and things like that, that you can go back and check on it. So people know about Tang very well. The archaeologists know about Tang very well. They look at the costumes of these figures. They were not typical Tang officials. So maybe it was earlier because Tang has very long dynasty and they influenced the clothing, the custom, everything. So it must be before Tang. So looking at the mural, they said, okay, this probably is before Tang, but how come it was built with brick? So they said, okay. Also, the number of keys depicted was definitely for a prince. So if it is a prince, there must be record about this guy. It can't be just all of a sudden disappear. But which court, what kind of rank, and who is this guy? So lots and lots and lots of questions. And after the archaeologists finish taking all the objects out, they go back and do their work. Next slide, please. Okay. They carry back to their laboratory a number of funeral figurines found in the loose dirt. I must tell you, these are not big figurines. They are from 4 to 6 inches tall and not terribly well made. And you can see in the pictures, they were made, but sort of barely have the figure, no detail, and not very well painted, etc. But they found a number of them. A lot of them were broken, but a lot of them were still intact. After detailed study, these clay attendants, they decided by the number of them must be attendants for a prince, excuse me. Because custom also dictate how many of these guys you can put in your own tomb. So next slide, please. There was no sarcophagus in the chamber. Apparently it was stolen long time ago. But there is no complete skeleton, but there were a few bone fragments scattered around where the dent showed where the sarcophagus was. They found some bones. And in the laboratory, they ascertained that these bones belong to the same person, to one male, approximately 40 to 55 years old. So that was another important piece of information. And there was no other human bones anywhere, fragment or not, in the entire site. Next one, please. I explained a little bit about Tang being a very prosperous, long-lasting dynasty. They also have very complete court records. By the way, court records really records everything. By the time Tang came along, they record what the emperor ate, where he went, at what time, whom he met, who he took to bed that night, how many wives, concubines, and did he talk to this son? Did he ignore that daughter, etc.? Everything. The court life, not just the emperor and the empress, the officials, etc., all have very complete record of what they do. When I was young, I always thought being a princess was great. Now I think it sucks, really. Not during that time anyway. Well, the question is whose tomb it is. To solve this puzzle, these scholars searched the Tang record, and they found no prince or high-ranking court personage died that fits all the findings of this tomb. And this took them about 2 years. They finally decided, got nothing to do with Tang. Next slide, please. Finally, an aha moment came. One of these research archaeologists was involved in another Sui Dynasty tomb found elsewhere in China. He looked at those clay figurines. He found some of them were almost identical, as if they were made by a mold. They weren't handmade, individually made. They were made by molds, mass produced. And the reason for mass produce is they need a lot of them and not terribly expensive. So this person is high ranking, but there is something about financial constraints make this person's burial use figurine made by molds, but they made so many to indicate the rank of this person. So who is it? Further examination found other significant similarity of the figures they found. Not these tiny figurines, the bigger figurines they found were very similar to the Zoom tomb they found previously. So they said, aha, that's why we couldn't find any record of anybody fit the description from the Tang Dynasty. It must be this dynasty. Next slide, please. So they go back to the Zhou court record. Unfortunately, that is a very short dynasty. And any dynasty, the beginning of the dynasty, the record keeping is only for big events. Smaller events, they usually do not provide much detail. But the researchers found the first Zhou emperor strip his eldest son's title of a crown prince. Let me tell you why. Remember, he was a frugal guy. He also ambitious. He wanted to build lots of things to make sure people know about him long after he's dead. And his oldest son, his eldest son, who is a crown prince, unfortunately, did not have his personality. He was a much softer guy. He liked arts, music, a good life. He liked to drink. He liked to watch courtesans to dance, completely opposite to what his father wanted him to be. And he was repeatedly told that he need to change. He need to be conscientious about how to build the empire, how to expand the boundary of the empire, etc. But he sort of ignored it. So the emperor said, okay, if you can't be a good emperor, you are not going to be the crown prince. So he gave the crown prince title to his second son. And that was the son that succeeded him, became the second emperor. This deposed prince stayed in the palace. He continued to enjoy life, not as good as before, but he had a bit of freedom. And he was very much isolated, except his friends who were interested in arts, music, etc. And also in the court, there were a number of people really did not like the second son, and also didn't think the emperor should strip his sons the title of crown prince. And so when this guy died, his friends and his supporter bury him with all the prince's trapping. That explained why so many of those figurines were mass produced. But they did spend the money where it counts, which was the brick chamber, that dome that withheld all the dirt for 15th century. So they did spend the money in the right places. And these are some of the other figurines were found in that, let's see, let me say it. The one on the left is found in his tomb. The one on the right were found elsewhere. And they have they found a lot of similarity in their dress, in their hair, etc. So they found that this guy died around the age 50, which fits the bones estimate between 40 and 55, and also fits a number of the clues they found in this tomb. Next slide, please. Okay, it doesn't stop people from debating. Chinese archaeologists and scholars debate the identity of this person for many years, except that they could not find a better explanation to fit all the clues. So recently, it was generally accepted that the disease was the deposed Sui prince of the first Sui emperor. I recently read one article still debating about the identity of this person, but a lot of people are not taking it very seriously. Next slide, please. Okay. There is a joke in China: modern day tomb robbers are busier than archaeologists. They are lured by the high profit and easy connection to underground illegal organization, especially in recent years. Not only outside of China, people are interested in Chinese antiques. Inside China, people are beginning, they have lots more money now, they are beginning to collect antiquities. So the market is international. And in fact, I was told more of them sold to Chinese inside China than outside, because they can afford to pay very high price. And because of the technology, not only enabled the archaeologists to use underground imaging to find things, the illegal guys also have the same technology. They have machineries. They can hire people to do quick jobs. So illegal archaeological site robbing is fairly common, even though punishment is pretty strict. It takes only a few days for rare and precious antiquities to be unearthed, transported, change hands many times, smuggled out of China, or stay inside China and found buyers. And how do these guys find these sites? They read literature, and they also pay a lot of attention to local folklores. In fact, I was surprised how many times sites were found because local has folklores about so-and-so were buried here, and look at that mound over there is the site. So, and on top of that, China has such a long history, lots of burial sites, and lots of them were not yet discovered. So there are opportunity for both legal and illegal excavation. The article on the left is from the magazine I showed you at the beginning, News China. And the article is The History Thieves, explain how rampant the Chinese illegal excavation is in China. Next slide, please. Severity of this problem, according to that article. Statistic from the Chinese National Cultural Heritage Administration indicate that more than 200 cases of theft from tombs were reported across China since 2019. And this article was published in the February issue of 2012, this year. And I don't know whether they discovered anything in 2012, but I think is within 2 years, they have 200 cases, more than 200 cases. Because the stolen objects change hands so many times, it's very difficult for the authority to catch these people. And also the buyers are very accommodating. They are willing to keep quiet, and they are willing to use bribes to make the object available. And also, they are willing to pay very high price for these illegal antiquity. So with that much profit, you can see that this problem is not going to stop very easily or very soon. Next slide, please. So what are the problems caused by these tomb robbers? I said it earlier, they take objects that are valuable, solid, easy to handle, easy to find buyers. That's why fabrics, etc., they're not interested in. Tiny clay figurines, today they are interested in, but for many years they don't care about those. In their haste to pursue profit, they often destroy fabrics, bones, and fragments of antiquities. Their action made identifying the Asian owner of these sites very difficult and sometimes impossible, resulting in the loss of historical records and heritage. On the left, you can see some bronze object at the top. And at the bottom are some clay and jade and mixed tiny little bowls. At the background, you can see a lot of people. The bottom picture showed that they caught the thieves with these things in their possession, and they were antiquities. And this is to show today they will take tiny little clay pots that previous robbers will ignore because they can find buyers even for small and objects not made of precious materials. Next slide, please. New approach to determine punishment. In August last year, China kicked off a new campaign against robbery of ancient grottos, tombs, pagodas across the country. Now they classify the severity of the crime by how significant the loss is. And if it is of very high cultural significance, then the robber will be punished more severely than if the person took things that were not terribly significant or is plentiful. I was shocked to find out the highest sentence for the most significant loss of antiquity was 10 years. I thought they would give them longer sentence, but apparently not. Okay, next one, please. This is fairly new knowledge. I just read this earlier this year. In recent years, China adopted a new approach to the study of the ancient history and culture. When a site is activated, they tag, save the dirt and debris around the buried object for later study, because they believe pollens, seeds, minute fabrics could be found in this debris that we overlook. And later on, new yet unknown technology could help them to find answers to the period, to the custom, to the agricultural products, etc., which is part of the ancient culture. Now I have a few personal notes to add, which is not on the slide. I have been to China since the mid-1980s, and not 36 times, I only went there 34 times. And because my father was a collector of antiquity, and I wasn't interested in that when I was young, but I caught the bug. So in my travel to China, especially around the late 80s and 90s, and just up to the late 90s, I could find pretty good quality antiques in the open market. And some of them I could afford. Since 2004, I think, I found that I not only not find them very often, if I find them, the price is way out of my range, and the quality is not as good as the ones that I could afford much earlier. This is all because the local people are buying them up. Remember, Cultural Revolution, China lost a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, and of course, a lot of life, etc. And a lot of people now know that they used to have this and that in the house, and because of the hard times, they don't have it anymore. Now they have money, they buy them up. In fact, anything of any value comes up, they are snapped up by the locals first. Furthermore, even if I could afford a good piece of antiquity, China will not let me take it out of the country anymore. So my collection days are over, but I'm happy that I had my days. That's the end of my talk. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Thank you. It took me a second to undo. If we have any questions in the chat, I do have one question that I'll ask first, Chris, and that is, I noticed from the pictures that it was almost all native-born Chinese that were there. Are there very many universities that are involved in these digs? And has China, kind of twofold, kept this all proprietary, meaning that they're really limiting to Chinese, or just even in the archaeological process of uncovering?
I missed the first part of your question. Can you ask again?
Yeah, what's the role of the university in this? I mean, obviously in the United States, I mean, there was a point at which almost all the archaeological digs came out of another country and would go to someplace like China. I know that Harvard's been doing digs, Stanford's doing digs in China, but are the ones that these new findings, are they kind of keeping them with Chinese archaeologists and Chinese who are doing the digs? And that's what I meant by kind of keeping it within country?
Yes. Previously, they allow foreign scholars to participate. In the last 15 years, getting harder and harder to get permission to participate. First of all, they have enough trained people, and they have all the new technologies at their disposal. But they do publish, and they do have debates, but on-site excavation is mostly done by Chinese now.
Great. And I wanted to ask Albert, since you had your hand up earlier, if you'd like to actually unmute and even turn on your video, if you can, please ask your question yourself.
Can't hear.
We're not able to hear you somehow, Albert. So it sounds to me like it's possible that your microphone isn't working.
Albert, can you put it in chat? We've got a couple questions in chat.
Right.
Can't
hear
Kathy,
you. Yeah, we'll have them put it in the chat. Kathy, did you want to find the next chat person
Yes,
to ask the question?
I don't know who this is from. It just says Zoom user. What do you believe makes the conservation of archaeological sites important in modern China?
Oh, because that's history. That's our culture. And we need to know where a lot of things come from. Our thinking, our attitude, our custom, our that's my personal feeling. Archaeology is not a dead science. Actually, it's a science to unearth the dead, to give us new knowledge. That's how I see it. So if you are interested in the culture and interested in how things evolve, archaeology can give you some answers. Did I answer the question or did I miss it completely?
No, I think you did. I think you did. Thank you, Chris. Vicky asks, what is your favorite collected piece and where was it from?
Oh my goodness, that's hard to say. I was introduced to antique jays by a scholar, and through him, I was able to acquire a few, and those are absolutely unavailable today. So in my mind, those are the most precious. But I also inherit some from my parents, my father. So emotionally, they are very important, even though maybe culturally they are not as important. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So you've got several people saying thankful. It was very, very interesting. Karen is saying that you can find many Chinese artifacts in the US that were brought back by missionaries in our local area. I think it's Marysville because I'm not familiar with Mattisville, and Oroville museums are the
It's
two
Marysville.
sites. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think it's Marysville and Oroville museums have many of the different pieces brought back.
Yes, I've been to Marysville. Actually, I hate to say this, but some of the better pieces I found were from soldiers that went to China in the 18th and 19th century. They brought back, and their children no longer are interested in them, and they sell them. I bought a few when I was in Australia. I bought a few here, even though I don't have as many good finds here. I find the soldiers that went to China 1 or 2 centuries ago actually brought back some very nice pieces.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna just say for a few minutes, Albert had his mic on. Let's give him one more opportunity if he can unmute to ask his question. Alfred, you want try for it? And we're still not hearing him.
His mic is not working.
His mic isn't working. We'll ask you one more time to do something. I'm going to ask a question while we can see if we can get him to do a question, then we'll wrap it up and go to the green room. We'll stop the recording. But Chris, since they are selling them, who's buying these and antiquities when they're being sold? Are these going into private hands and people are just hiding them?
Yes, a lot of them are hiding them. A lot of them are private people. Museums buy them too, but museums have very good ones. When
Right.
I did visit the British Museum, I was shocked to see the quality and the quantity they have there. At that time, I was in England and about 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I saw the museum in Taiwan, in Taipei. That one was great because Chiang Kai-shek brought a lot of them when he left China to Taiwan. They were very high quality. So museum buy them, but the big museum have a lot already. Private people are the ones that buying up now.
Good. All right. And do we have any last minute questions before we thank Chris and ask her if she has any last words?
I don't have any last word. Thank you for interested in knowing a little bit about China, and thank you for spending your time with me. I appreciate it very much.
And Chris, you're getting great. My favorite one was it took a year to hear you. So thank you so much. It was well worth the anticipation. And again, I can't wait to invite you over because as I said, my father was lucky enough to actually buy an antique store in 1956 where everything was, you know, at this point, probably a minimum of 150 years old. So I'd love to share some of my things and some of his fake things as well. So Kathy, if you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Friendship Force and Renaissance and close it up for us.
Okay, sure. So for Renaissance is our local lifelong learning group. It's through California State University, Sacramento. And we do have some programs that are available to the public, but as with most organizations, membership has its benefits. And so there are just so many more programs available to our members. And our Friendship Force of Sacramento organization is devoted to cross-cultural understanding, and our members promote a message of friendship and peace. And we host folks from around the world and around the US, and we also travel and stay in nationals' homes to learn more about their communities and to realize how many things we have in common. So I'm going to stop the recording and we'll